Israel is outstanding at keeping guys who want to get into a boxing range away from it. So I could be wrong, but I say that Israel walks away as the champion.
Yeah, I think so. But I guess the next question is does he just vacate that title, the 185-pound title after that?
So well, he's beaten just about everybody there is there.
Yeah.
And that's the real question is you're looking, there's a couple guys obviously coming up that you can start to say, all right, this, the Kevin Hollands are coming up and, the Buckleys are coming up, if you want to say that. But they're not ready.
Can you pull up the 85-pound weight class? So we had suggested this a while ago, and I had said, look, he can stay at 205. Let the 185-pound division just settle in, and you create an interim title, not now, but in a little bit. Okay, after a couple guys have worked their way back up to fight, who I think will still be there will be Whitaker. Whitaker deserves to fight for an interim title if Izzy's going to stay up at 205 for a little bit and defend. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think the guys in the 185-pound division that are there right now, you have Paulo Costa, and you can have Robert Whitaker fight. You can have Paulo Costa, or you can have Robert Whitaker fight Cannonier. I mean, there's guys in
just fought.
I mean, sorry, not Whitaker and Cannonier. Darren Till and Whitaker that could fight, or Cannonier can fight. We gotta settle that. I think we gotta settle the under those guys in 2, 3, 4, and 5 to see who's gonna end up. Vittori, he's there as well. Get those guys to fight each other to see who's gonna fight Whitaker for an interim title. That'll take probably another year and a half. That gives Izzy enough time to defend his title one time at 205. And then maybe if he wants to drop back down and have two champs or two titles, or he can vacate the title then at 205 or vacate the title at 185. But there's options to be made there because he has wiped out that division. Like John Jones. He's wiped out that division at 205. Him going to heavyweight, I think was the best thing like we had talked about last week. For the UFC and for John Jones. He needs a little bit more motivation. He needs something to get him going. And the UFC needs to spark that heavyweight division up. Because the 205, even though he was so dominant and people tuned in, it's been the pillar of the organization all the way back from Frank Shamrock, Tito Ortiz, like that division. Was Randy there? Or was Vitor Belfort? Who was before Frank? There was no one before Frank, right? Frank was the first, huh? 205-pound champ. The light heavyweight champ was Frank Shamrock was the first, correct? Yeah. So you have Frank Shamrock, you got Tito Ortiz, and then you go on, Chuck and all those guys, Randy. You've got those guys that were all in that list there. I think you let that dust settle below and have those guys fight. And then if Izzy wants to stay at 205, he may be a better fighter at 205. I don't know how much weight he cuts to get to 185. But he may be a better fighter at 205, and if he feels better and is performing the same, it's going to be hard for any of those guys to beat him. Because no matter how much I like Glover Teixeira and Santos and Dominic Reyes and Rakic and those guys, they don't have the technique that he has on the feet. And I don't see any of those guys, none of those guys they don't wrestle well enough, I think, to get him down. They're not better wrestlers than Yoel Romero. And so we get into that conversation.
Coming full circle.
Yeah, coming full circle back to ground one. I don't know like who you would have in the 205-pound division. You could run into a whole nother thing where he ends up dominating that weight class as well, depending on how much weight he cuts and he's got the body style for it. And I could see him dominating that weight class as well at 205. There'd be no reason for him to go back to 85. If he kills himself to make the weight, why?
Well, and I named a couple of guys when I was saying, Kevin Holland and Buckley. Obviously, there's other guys ahead of those guys. There's the Darren Tills that he hasn't fought. But you got to look at the guys he's fought and then other people because, his last fight was against Costa and he smoked him. The fight before that was Romero, which was horrible. It was horrible. But, he had beaten Whitaker before that, and Whitaker beat Till. So it's one of those, there's really, like you said, he kind of cleared out the division.
Yeah.
There's really no one that you can look at and go, man, who's the guy that's going to, this is the guy that we think can actually, test him. It's going to be a while before that guy emerges in my mind because you have Whitaker who's fought him and lost. You can say Cannonier, but Cannonier lost to Whitaker. You can say Till, but Till lost to Whitaker.
Mhm.
So, there's a couple of guys out there that you could say, yeah, I would like to see that fight. But I think the move right now to light heavyweight, it's the right move for him. When you clear out a division, which he pretty much did, that's the time to move on.
I think within a year and a half, we'll know if Kevin Holland's the real deal. And I think that body length and that style of how he fights, and we saw how he's got a pretty decent like bottom grappling game in terms of being able to control the space, use his ability on the ground to kind of, we saw against Jacare.
His next fight.
Yeah. I mean, what?
His next fight against Derek Brunson.
Yeah,
that's going to say a lot.
That's going to say a lot. He gets that win. I mean, there's really no one else in front of him. I mean, like he's going to go up to end up fighting probably like a Darren Till or a Cannonier. I heard Darren Till's going back down to 70. That would be just ridiculous. Yeah. But I wouldn't mind seeing, the Darren Till, the Vettori, and Kevin Holland fight. But that'll let you know that body style, like as we've talked about, does so well in MMA. But Kevin Holland Izzy would be a good fight in a year and a half, like one of those year and a half, 2 years kind of thing, And I'd like to see him mature as a fighter before I go throwing him to the wolves. But it would be nice to see him get, if he fights Derek Brunson, beats Derek Brunson, and you got Hermanson, Vettori, Till, Cannonier, Costa, all ahead of him. So really after he fights, who was he fighting again?
Holland's fighting Brunson.
Yeah, Brunson. After he fights, sorry, I just totally spaced out because Dave changed it. I was looking for the name and Dave changed the page. Just blacked out.
Dave, be careful. You can't pull away the words from him.
Yeah,
he's been hit in the head.
CTE. Yeah, if he has a good performance against Derek Brunson, man, he really after that, he's got nothing but killers in front of him. Not that Derek Brunson's not, but I'm saying if he does get through him, it's going to be.
Well, if there's one guy you can truthfully look and say, all right, here's a guy that fought Izzy and actually had a good fight against him, it was Vettori. And Vettori then just, has a big win against Hermanson. Mm-hmm. He's the one guy that I think he has him saying, I deserve that fight. I kind of agree with it. Yeah. He'd be the next guy that I would say, yeah, kind of, after he fought him once, he put on a good performance. He put on a great performance against, Hermanson. So yeah, he's the guy that's sitting out there in Never Never Land that you kind of feel bad for.
Well, it makes it fun. I think this is what the UFC needed, though, going into 2021, as they needed something to really mix it all up. You're going to see John Jones in the heavyweight division this year, and you're going to see Izzy fighting in the light heavyweight division this year. And you're going to see the dust settle at 185 pounds. And they're going to have, probably a new champion, I think, by the end of the year there, because I think if Izzy wins against Jan, he'll stay there. I don't think there's any reason for him to go back down.
100% agree. Okay.